Hello, everybody. Welcome to Monday Night Live. My name's Derek Arden, and I'm delighted to have Lorraine Ellison on today. Let me tell you a little bit about Lorraine. Lorraine is a Mackem, and we'll tell you what a Mackem is later on. In the Northeast, they have all sorts of funny names and expressions that us Londoners don't understand, but it's important that we share those with you later. Lorraine's a busy accountant at running her own business, and she turned my business down. So it just shows how valuable that is. She knows how to say no to people. Lorraine gets involved in all sorts of local issues in the Northeast. And I first met Lorraine when I spoke for her at a CIMA conference, Chartered Institute of Management Accounting. Welcome, Lorraine. Thanks for joining Monday Night Live. And perhaps you'd tell us what you did in a previous life when you were a young girl. What did you get up to then?
Oh, I did a lot of studying, a lot of reading, a lot of maths questions. I must point out at this point, I'm not very good at adding up, but I can do formula. So that's my thing. I worked for the local newspaper, so I had to teach editors how to prepare a budget. Now, that's funny because all they know is words. They don't know numbers. So it was bridging that gap. I worked for Dunlop. I can't pronounce one of the Dunlop names. I struggle with it, but they produce tennis rackets and tennis balls, and I can't pronounce it. And I worked for Pickerings Lifts. So I learned all about the lift industry. And my claim to fame in there was I did a spreadsheet in Dutch because we had a Dutch company. And I had to keep switching it back to English so I could understand what the formulas were. So it was great fun, learnt lots throughout the time. And then I eventually decided I was going to set my own business up. I never wanted to, but I wanted some control over my own life and set it up with, borrowed £10,000 on the mortgage to buy a car. I already had a computer and I went for it. And Will, you'd be pleased to hear this. My first thing was I went networking. I was free to go and meet with people. It was absolutely fabulous. And I said, I'll give it 6 months. If I don't like it, I can go and get another job in management accountancy. And I found that I loved it, absolutely loved it. So that was it. That was me on board with my own business. And it was just me. And then it sort of grew. I needed more people to delegate work to. So we're up to 4 full-time. And about 3 or 4 part-time. I lose track of it because we work flexi. So it's hard to know how many people you've got because it's all done on flexible basis. Brilliant. So yeah, and we love it.
So you were voted one of the top women in accountancy. And actually accountancy is quite an unusual job for a woman in the days when you joined. And I know that you're not very old, but even so, it's a pretty male-dominated arena. Why did you choose it, and how did you deal with all those men?
Oh yes, I didn't really notice that it was all men. I was too focused on doing my job. Oh, wow. But I fell into it. I wanted to work for the banks, so I thought that was a nice place to go and work, use my adding up skills that I couldn't add up, but I thought I could. But they all turned me down because I only had 1 A level. I didn't know the right connections. If I'd gone networking sooner, I might have had the right connections. So I went for a careers talk and got offered an interview. And I thought, people like me don't become accountants. It's reserved for those who've got money or come from a good area or go to a good school. However, I got the job and I went and did a BTEC because I only had 1 A level. And then I've completed that, and that allowed me to go and start on the CIMA qualification. And I was always a bit of a scrape by sort of student. So one level, there was 5 levels, 1 level, I sat those exams, there was 4 exams, I sat them 6 times. So that's 24 exams to get through 1 level. And you would think on attempt 5, I might think about giving up, and I didn't. I just kept thinking, oh, I'm getting closer, I'm nearly there. And then the last attempt I got through, and the final year I sailed through it. I learned the art of really, you've got to put a bit of effort in to pass the exams. blame my employer. But the male environment, I really didn't notice it. Apart from once I went to a seminar, and it was only when I went to the loo I realised I was the only female, because there was no loo, there was no queue at the ladies' loo, and there was a massive queue at the male loo. I came back into the room and looked around, and it was full of grey suits and briefcases. And then I realised, oh, I'm the only woman here. But I didn't really pay much attention to it.
So you didn't find a glass ceiling or any of those issues?
I did actually. When you look back over, you don't realise when you're in amongst it, because I'm a glass half full. I look at what I've got and I make the best of what I've got. And I come from a humble background, so you don't, your aspirations are quite low. So anything you get is usually quite good. I was paid £10,000 less than a male equivalent in the same role. I couldn't get past a certain level on the job, and you look to see, was that because of something in me, or was it because there are the barriers? And you don't know. But if I hadn't gone through those things, I wouldn't be where I am today, and I'm very happy with where I am now. So in my world, I'm rich. That's what it's all about.
Fantastic. That is what it's all about, isn't it? But I think that statistic that women get paid 17% more, less than men, still holds true all over the world. And I wonder if that's because of lack of networking, lack of asking, lack of pushing, or just accepting people, you trusting the boss. I don't know. It's
yes.
something we might.
You think you're being looked after, perhaps not.
Yeah.
Perhaps we don't ask. Perhaps we don't have enough.
Yeah, I think it's a
self-value.
combination. I think it's a combination of all those things, actually, and we might have a debate on that. Get some ladies on Monday Night Live and have a debate shortly. Now, you're a real negotiator, and you just got married. Again.
I did.
Again, you did tell me this yesterday, so I'm going to ask you. You had a rather interesting negotiation with your husband about where to live.
I did.
Can you share that with us?
I can. I wanted to stay in my house, and I didn't really, you know what it's like, you might not, but you get married and you've got to do a bit of give and take. We live in separate towns. He's got a daughter, he's got a dog. So I put it to him. I said, how about we get married, but we keep living in our own houses, and we just get together on like a weekend and midweek for one night, and let's see how that goes. His first reaction was, oh, no, that doesn't sound right at all. And I said, let's think about it. Let's talk through the benefits and the pros and cons of it. Anyway, he agreed with me in the end, and that's what we do.
Wow. And it's working, because I know you only got married in November, didn't you? And many congratulations to you.
Thank you very much. It was a fabulous day. It was the best of my weddings that I went to, because he's my third husband. So I've had a bit of practice, and he is Mr. Right. And now that we live apart, it's just perfect.
Sounds like you had a few negotiation skills before that then. So there's not much I can...
Learned a lot, yes.
Not much we can talk about on negotiating. Now I'm going to ask you this, and we got a few accountants on this. When I read the Financial Times, it seems to me that accountants make a lot of money out of bending the tax rules. Is this true?
Possibly, probably.
This is the recorded bit, by the way, and so HMRC might be watching this.
Yes, there are some schemes about, but the high risk, in my view, we sit here in the safe lane. We want to do things at a low risk. There's loads you can do legitimately. So they're the sort of rules we apply. But if you want to take high risk and make big money, you can go to some of the bigger firms or the specialists who do that. However, you never know when HMRC are going to, or the government are going to change the rules and do a retrospective claim. And also, do you want to go to sleep at night worrying that you might be subject to an inquiry from the taxman? The people I work with don't. I don't want to. I want to sleep on a night.
There's a great value on being able to sleep and not getting yourself wound up and then getting the emotions going. Now, you did a negotiation with HMRC for a jeweller a few years ago.
Yes.
Didn't you?
Oh, that was classic. Yes, I volunteered to do some free work so I could get some experience in an inquiry. And my client was with a larger firm, audit firm, and they'd been caught out by HMRC. And do you remember the days when if you paid by credit card, we'd have those machines and you go, and you sign them manually. The signature on the voucher wasn't on the payroll records. And that's how he got found out. He was taking money off the customers and paying it to the Saturday girls and not declaring it. So you were not paying VAT, not paying pay as you earn. So he wasn't benefiting personally. He was just moving the money around in his own little shop.
Oh, wow.
So I could see it wasn't going very well, and he was losing sleep. He was having about 3 hours sleep a night. And I asked if I could help or join in or whatever, do a bit of digging. And the inspector, I got a good rapport going with the inspector, and the inspector gave me some tips on what to put into my report. And the crux of it was the jeweller, who was my client, wasn't earning 40% margin like Northern Goldsmiths. He was between 20 and 22%. So we proved that, came out at $250,000. But I knew that if he had to pay $250,000 plus penalties, the business was ruined. So we put that to the inspector, and he agreed on a 90,000 settlement. So it was like, and then further negotiations were, which goes to show the value of getting a good relationship going. The VAT, it was the time when Mark will know this, when the HMRC and Customs and Excise, Inland Revenue and Customs and Excise were combining. And he said, I can't guarantee that the VAT man won't come out once we're finished, but I'll do my best to protect you. Sure enough, we got a phone call, said they were coming for a VAT visit. So I rang him up and I said, I know you can't promise, you couldn't promise, but is there anything you can do? He said, as it happens, they're in the next office to me. I'll ring you back in 10 minutes. He come back in 10 minutes. You're safe for 3 years, they're not coming out. I don't think you get that now, because they haven't got the old style inspectors. And that was just saved his business, really, because had he had another penalty, he would have had to close down. So it's all right negotiating, but you've got to focus on building the right rapport with the people you're trying to negotiate with.
Absolutely. And what was the cost to him in what we would call, or Stephen Covey calls, the emotional bank account, you know?
Well, it was horrendous. He didn't sleep for 5 months. And he said, the thing is, if you don't declare your income, then you can't go and spend it legitimately. So he's on the straight and narrow now. He doesn't do anything where he doesn't declare the earnings. And he hadn't gained anything personally from it. He just not been paying the right level of taxes. And he wants to sleep on a night. He wants to get a mortgage, buy a property, and be able to do it all legitimately without worrying that somebody's going to come and inquire on him.
Brilliant.
Peace of mind.
Yeah. Did you manage to have a face-to-face meeting with the inspectors?
I did. That's how it all worked.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have worked on a Zoom or a telephone call. It was a face-to-face. Some things you cannot beat a face-to-face meeting.
Absolutely. I did a talk last week and we were talking about face-to-face meetings, and people hate face-to-face meetings now. They don't actually go for it. They don't even like phoning, do they? It's all done by email, which is absolutely ridiculous. And I actually talked in my newsletter this morning about mirror neurons, which is a psychological phenomenon that actually works, where you, if you mirror and match the body language, the tone of voice and the words, MRI scans show that you'll be connected with the person, even though you're controlling it. The benefits of face-to-face is just so amazing. We did talk about negotiating with women tax inspectors compared with
yes,
negotiating with male tax inspectors. What's your
yes?
Well,
the most recent case we've had going on, it's been a woman inspector, and she plays hard and she won't budge 1 inch. Now, I'm not sure if it was the combination of who was involved in the meeting, but I wasn't there. So I can't say whether it was my lack of influence in it or whether it was just the fact that it was a female inspector. Anyway, that one's gone on for 5 years, and we've had to bring an expert in, and that's only just reached conclusion. And can I just say, if anybody, talking about beating the tax man, that started with £20 cash appointments. And it ended up, it went up to 20,000 plus penalties. Final negotiation is 10,000, no penalties.
Say that
And
again, Lorraine. £2 £20. What was it?
There were inspectors had gone undercover, gone into a salon and one had the nails done, one had back massage, paid £20 each in cash, and then a year later asked to see the records to get
Oh,
that.
wow.
It was in the records, but the bookkeeping wasn't particularly good, and it was hidden behind some vouchers, and it just, it all ended up in a mess. It wasn't our doing, because somebody we inherited. Yeah.
That's interesting. That's a bit pathetic, isn't it? They couldn't have had much to do that week.
Well.
No, I know. I know. I get it. So you're a lifelong learner, and everybody on here is lifelong learners. That's we're all interested in how we can further ourselves. That's why we connect and have a mastermind group. But what did you learn when you were president of CIMA, the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants? And I know that you've done other jobs in that arena. Yes,
I learned how to put on a black tie event and get up and speak in front of 150 or 200 people, which was the scariest thing when you're quite young. So that was, yeah. And at the end of that one, I learned never, ever drink shots quickly. That was my lifelong lesson from that.
I bet you drunk those after you'd spoken rather than...
It's when the nerves calm down and then you think, oh, that's over. And then, never do that.
I think everybody's done that once. I'm just going to put it on gallery view and just nod if you have done that once, and put your everyone's nodding on that one. So there we go. Yeah, that's
yeah. The other thing I did learn was the value of making connections. So the collaboration thing about working with other institutes. So I got to talk to people from Chartered Institute of Taxation, the chartered secretaries. So it's across, the collaborations with other people who are working in the same industry. So that proved quite valuable.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And well, we talk about networking, and Will Kentish talks about networking, but there's just so much value in networking. What's the expression Will uses? If you're networking, you're never not working. I always like that one, but it's true, isn't it? It's just true. I just can't understand why people don't do it and why people don't connect. Well, we're nearly coming to the end of the interview, Lorraine, but there's a few questions in the chat box. But what's your favorite business book?
Oh, you like this, Derek, and you've not paid me to say this, but and do you know what? Do you know what the best bit is, right? There's a page in there and it's about negotiating with yourself, because if you don't negotiate with yourself, you're not in control really of your life.
Absolutely.
Mark's got one too.
Thanks, Lorraine. I'm so embarrassed you did that, but thank you so much.
You know what I loved? That you've got a questionnaire, and I did it. And then I used it to identify where my gaps were. So, when you're striving for perfection and all the rest of it, which I don't, but I try and analyze the gaps. And then I thought, oh, well, what little things can I go and research on getting the gaps filled? So it was very useful. Thank you.
No, thank you. And talking about negotiating with yourself, that was a chapter I had to persuade the editor to let me put in the book, because actually, what's the point in setting goals if you haven't sorted yourself out about what you want? And if you don't know what you want, every road takes you there, doesn't it? So there we go. Anyway, one last tip before we go into the questions in the chat box for people watching this on tax, on life, on self-development.
Trying to do something that's not just for business, but for people as well, because it always starts with the person. Review your bank statements and just declutter. Get rid of the stuff you don't need and have a look at the things you're paying for, and are you getting value for money? Typical things are people are paying for mobile phones and they're paying £70 a month. You might be able to get the same value, same service for £40. And Sky, do you need all those channels? Do you have time to watch them? If not, get a smaller package. Just do that, clean up your personal bank account, and then go and do the same with your budget, and then save for your taxes and find a way to be in control so you can sleep at night. And just if you've got a limited company, because these are my little favourites, check out Trivial Benefits in the UK. £50 tax-free gifts from the company, limited to £300 a tax year if you're a director. That's my favourite little tax wheeze in the UK.
Is that a website, Trivial Benefit?
No, it's a HMRC little known fact, but one of my other books that I like to read is the Tax Cafe series, and they've usually got little tips as to what you can do legitimately for tax-free benefits.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, no, that's fantastic. So we should all be we can have an AGM, can't we? There some really crazy rules, isn't there? I can take my wife to Mallorca and have an AGM and fly back, can I?
Only, Derek, only if you plan it properly. You've got to plan it properly. It's got to be genuine, got to pre-plan it and make sure it is business and not just a holiday in disguise.
It would be difficult to prove that if I was questioned. I'd rather sleep at night. Lorraine, let's have a look at the questions in the chat box. Will Kinchy says clients need to know the authorities have unlimited money, but props unlimited time. The quicker a deal is done, the better for everybody. Paul Coleman asked, did the jeweler just make a mistake when applying the incorrect tax rates? It seems hard to believe he gained nothing. Let me tell you, Paul's in the Turks and Caicos Islands and he's a regulator and he used to be a bank inspector. So he's seen everything.
Yeah. He worked 24/7. So even if he did have extra money, he didn't spend it because he always was at work.
And Andy Walker says he can't speak too highly of his accountant. She's a northern woman. So it must be you, Lorraine. So he's just being kind. Lorraine, can I thank you for coming on? We'll see you. You're coming down to the top masterclass on the 28th of April, all the way from Sunderland. I suggest you come the night before this time.
I'm going to come the night before because last time I had to get up at 5:30 in the morning or get the 5:30 train or something like that. I'm not a morning person.
And you stay for a drink afterwards, so that's great. So that's on the 28th of April. Graham Jones and I are running that, and we have guest speakers. Of Kate Atkin and Gabby Gachet. So that's going to be a great day. And email me if anyone wants the discount code for that. So Lorraine, thanks very much for joining us. Will you stay on for a little while to answer questions?
Yeah.
Thank you. And how do people get hold of you if they want to ask you any tax questions?
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn, yeah.
LinkedIn, it's all screened.
LinkedIn's the best one. So can I ask members of Monday Night Live to give Lorraine the usual Monday Night Live round of applause? And thanks for joining us, Lorraine. It's been a great pleasure.